This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
Good day to all of you. It's been wonderful since the last time we saw each other, which was about a week ago, I guess. And I promised you a very special guest today, and I have come through. Actually, this gentleman has come through. He has a very, very busy schedule, and he was very kind enough to set aside an hour for us. He's going to come back at some point because we cannot go through the art world in 1 hour. There is no way we can go through it in 1 hour. But let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman right off the bat. Mr. Ray Taylor is a teacher, a lecturer, an artist, and an art historian, as well as an auctioneer. He's multi-talented. He's forgotten more about art than any of us will ever know. You can catch him on Friday and Sunday nights from 7 to midnight on the Fine Art Auction on AVC, which is the American Value Channel. Check your cable network, find out where it is. I think if you're on Spectrum and a few others, you can probably catch him on there. He's fantastic. I really do. I first saw him on another auction program, and then he disappeared for a while, and then I caught up with him again here. He is absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, would you please welcome the incomparable, the fabulous, wakey, eggs and bacon himself, Mr. Ray Taylor.
Well, you're far too kind. Nice seeing you again, Gary. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Nice to see you too as well. We were talking before we went on the air. We're hoping to have another guest with us, but we'll see what happens. Ray, why the art world, and how old were you when you went, yeah, I think that's the direction I want to take my life?
Oh, I remember exactly. I was 8 years old. I'm an Army brat, and my mother grew up on a small farm, an RF delivery in central Wisconsin. In Downing, Wisconsin, there is population 220. Today, back then it was smaller. The next big city, 3 miles away, was Glenwood City, population 800. And she never really traveled. So when you grow up on a farm, you want to, a young person wants to see the world. She became an Army nurse. My father was a medical corpsman. And every 2 years, we'd, do Fort Benjamin, Harrison, and we would travel every 2 years. 2 years in Germany. And my mother felt guilty that we didn't have a normal upbringing. So we'd go to planetariums, we'd go to lectures, we'd go to poetry readings. And she took us to the Berlin Museum, and I walked in and I went like this. And I said, whatever this is, I'm going to do this when I grow up. And I said, Mom, where are we? She goes, you're in the Berlin Art Museum. And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to do this. She is without a doubt the most profound influence on my life.
Yeah.
We talked about
my mother. Yeah, my mother was too. She was an interior decorator, but that's not the direction I was going to take my life. My father was more. He was an airline captain for one of the airlines, and I wanted to fly. And I did in the Air Force, but that was before my eyes started to go. Ray, in 1985, you became a charter member of the docent at the Dali Museum. Now, I know how you feel about Salvador Dali. Everybody that watches the show knows how you feel about Salvador Dali, that whack job from way over there. But what a genius. I mean, what an absolute genius. How did you become a docent? And by the way, for those who don't know, I was a docent at the Water Tower in Chicago, if you want to call it that. You're a tour guide and you give lectures and you tell people about what they're looking at. And you did, I believe you said over 750 lectures while you were there. Talk about that. How did you get it? And did you have to audition for it?
In retrospect, it was perfect training for the TV show. Actually, it goes back to 1981. Reynolds Morse and his wife Eleanor wanted to open a museum in Austin, Texas, and they were refused. They said, we'll give you a world-class collection, just give us a venue. And Austin, to their chagrin today, St. Petersburg said, yes, we'll do it. And they had a hardened, hurricane-proof marina building. And they said, is it safe? And they said, yes. And so that was the original building. But I started there actually 1981. I had read about it. And so here I am. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, living in Madeira Beach. I read in the St. Pete Times. I'm reading the paper. And the Dali Museum is coming. Well, after about a week that it was in the news that it was under construction, I showed up. I went to the job site. Joan Croft, the curator, is standing there in a hard hat with a clipboard. And I go, that's the supervisor. That's not working. And I
Yeah.
walk up and I go, "Hi, my name's Ray." And she goes, "How can I help you, Ray?" And I said, "I'm going to work here until you start paying me." That was my first words. And she goes, "I love it." She goes, "I like your attitude." She goes, "But do you know something? Everyone in Cleveland, where the museum used to be, they all had a chance to move to Florida and they took it. We don't have any openings." I said, "You didn't." Let me repeat. "I'm going to start working here until you pay me. I'm going to keep showing up." And she goes, "We have a docent program." I said, "I'm in. Whatever. I'll mop the floor.
Yeah.
Goodwill. Okay. I'll be there. What time?" So the Morrises, Reynolds Morris, A. Reynolds Morris, and his wife Eleanor, who was knighted. She was a Dane for translating Catalonian. We went out to dinner. I heard many, many wonderful stories. And because I was so enthusiastic, let's say, I was the first to give a lecture at the Dali Museum, May
Really?
82, opening day. And I had
Wow.
about 20 cameras from Spain and Italy, Japan, you name it. I can't find any of the tape, but it doesn't matter. End of the story is that in let me think, July of 1985, and I'd love to track this man down. I've tried, but it hasn't worked. An attorney named James Green of Seattle, Washington, came in and he goes, "You really like this, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, I actually do." He goes, "What do they pay you?" I go, "Nothing." Quote, "It's a labor of love." He goes, "There's a gallery out in Hawaii."
Yeah.
And I go, I serve. I love this. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. And at the time, you're going to laugh, I was working as a travel agent. They don't have
I don't think, and somebody was asking me that the other day, Ray, and I said, I don't think there are travel agencies anymore anywhere. I don't think.
Yeah, maybe on a corporate level. The last I heard, I think the Pentagon still has travel agents, but that's another. So
I worked for them. They sent me on a few tours called
did they?
Vietnam and a few other things that I was involved in when I was in the Air Force. Well, they said, "Oh, we got to send this kid." Oh, yeah, yeah. I was in flight school. They said, "Oh, we're going to send you to C-130 school," and I went, "Oh, okay, fine." Next thing I know, no, you're going to go fly Huey helicopters. I went, "Oh, great." I called up my dad. I said, "Do you have my funeral arrangements already made out? Because I'm not going to live long over there." Anyway, go ahead. Did you go to Hawaii? You went to Hawaii, I remember.
Right. I did move to Hawaii in August of 1985, and I was living in a hotel and got the job. It was called Images International of Hawaii. I was there for 12 years.
Yeah. And you
It was
traveled a lot during that time period too. I mean, you gave a lot of lectures. You went along everywhere. You also traveled all over the place. You used to go to the New York Art Expo. You went to the LA
right.
Art Expo. I mean, you set up these art exhibits. You set up everything. I mean, you were a man of all seasons when it comes to art. What is it that art does for you? I know what it does for me. You and I've discussed this. I can't afford, number one, what you have on your show by Mr. Bouchette, but I collect Native American art, and I've been doing it since Kevin Costner and I went to school together at the
Wow.
Groundlings, and even before then. And I have an actual Sioux lance given to me on the set of Dances with Wolves by a Sioux chief because I told a couple of jokes at dinner, and he and his wife thought I was funny. And so before I left, they gave me the Sioux lance. They had to send it to me. I couldn't take it on the airplane. It's huge. It's like
Right.
8 feet. But what is it about art that does it for you? When you look at a piece of art, and I've heard you say on the show numerous times, "Oh yeah, we're setting up the show," and I walk by this piece, and I go, "Oh yeah, that's nice," and then I go, "Oh, wait a minute, what?" You don't think I'm listening, do you, Ray Taylor? But I am. By the way, Ray Taylor's joining us here on Main Street. Would you put up there the information for people to find Mr. Taylor on the AVC network? There you go. Check that out. Friday through Monday. And Ray will be on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. guaranteed.
Well, just a quick update. If you don't have cable or anything like that, we are on Roku and we are on Facebook and YouTube. So if you can get YouTube, just type in the Fine Art Auction and Bob's your uncle, and there we are. It's a live broadcast, webcast.
Yeah. What is it about artwork? And then we'll get back to Hawaii and your travels. And of course, then where I first saw you on the AAN TV, I think it was originally. I'm old, but my memory's not that far gone. But what is it about art when you look at something and you go, that person has it? Yeah, they've got what it takes.
I think that people just find their niche. I don't know what else to say, but I have friends that are coin collectors. Back to my AAN days, Todd and Eric, we're going out to Vegas for a coin show. Oh, this is going to be great. And I'm like, well, okay. And I've collected a few coins and I'm like, well, okay. But with art, it's the whole human experience. It's every emotion. And that's what I try to do on my show. I learned from Shakespeare. The world's a stage, and we're merely players, and to
Hmm.
follow the boards. And so, what I try to do with the show is that I try to incorporate every emotion: anger, jealousy. I covet that. Oh, I want that. I want because if you na 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 na,
Yep.
so and I try comedy. I think comedy is king. Comedy is
Yeah.
king.
I think that teachers and professors you remember from college or school that told stories or had added humor into their lectures are the ones you remember and you learn from more than someone who's just bullet points, boom, 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 boom. Like Ferris Bueller, that kind of monotone bull crap. Oh yeah, you can catch Main Street on dbtv.tv. Thursdays, it's Tuesdays. Excuse me, what's wrong with me today? Tuesdays at 7 p.m. You can catch a lot of my old shows. This show will be up in a couple of weeks on that network, of which I will let you know, Mr. Taylor. You also have been considered one of the finest art historians around. As far as a lot of people are concerned, what you have forgotten is more than what some supposed experts have ever known. Where do you keep it all up in here, or do you? I mean,
Well,
what's your
it's
preparation like getting into a show?
I read. Books are wonderful. The internet's fine, but I guess I have about 130 art books, and I can go back to them. It's a wealth of knowledge. The thing that I try to do is a full range. I want to appeal to the first time collector. I think a moment that was very important in my life. Someone said years ago, Ray, I like it, but how do I collect art? And I haven't changed. It's buy what you like, buy what you buy quality, and buy what
Yes.
you afford. And if you take those rules and turn them around, I mean, I've lived all of those experiences. I bought a piece because it was a good deal, and I have it now, and I don't like it. It's not on the wall. I don't know. It's got to
Hmm.
click. It's like a pretty girl. When it clicks, it clicks. Buy quality. My honest to goodness first buying experience. I was about 16 years old. I was mowing lawns, and I think I had, I don't know, $30, and that was like 6 lawns worth $5 a lawn. And this guy was having a yard sale in Madeira Beach, and there was a big stack of art. It was about 60 sheets, and I'm looking through it, and he goes, "How much?" And he goes, "Something 100." I go, "I got $30," and I bought it. It was all junk. So buy quality
Yeah.
and buy what you can afford. Years ago, I saw a Picasso print, pencil signed. It was a skull on a table with a book and a candle, and I think something else, and it was $36. I had no business buying it, and I didn't buy it. I couldn't afford it. So again, the three rules: can you afford it? Is it quality? Do you like
Yeah.
it? I
Yeah.
getting back to do you like it? I getting back to being a travel agent. One of my favorite stories is we sent a lady came in to the travel agency in person. She wanted to see the Great Wall of China, and so we sent her there, in a group, and she was very safe. And she came back, and we said, "How did you like it?" And she goes, "The wall was fine, but too much Chinese food. Wherever you go, there you are." You're gonna hate Italy.
Oh yeah. If you don't like pasta, don't go to Italy. For God's sakes, don't go to Italy. It's funny you bring up that. In Italy, the pizza is not like the pizzas we
No.
have here. That's considered like a sandwich for lunch. And that's pretty much about it. You're right about buy what you like, buy what you can afford, and make sure it's quality. That's what my
Oh,
mother used to always say. It doesn't have to be the most expensive piece of artwork. It can be something worth $50, but if you like it and it's a nice quality, add it to your collection. I mean, with me, it's Frank Howell and Rance Hood and people like that I've been very lucky enough to have before Frank passed away. He double signed Grandfather's Echo. I have from Chuck Connor's auction a beautiful artist proof. The guy's name is Wainwright artist, but nobody can tell me anything about the guy. And I have an artist proof. I forget what number it is. I have it framed, but I got it at the Chuck Connor's auction, and I love the piece. It's in aqua with
what I surprised myself. I can pull a rabbit out of a hat. Give me the data, close up on the signature. We'll try.
All right, we'll see what we can do over the next week or so. Your travels have taken you to many, many cities, including West Palm Beach. Let's see. You have gone to so many different cities. You have been on the air for over 18 years.
3 months, it'll be 19.
Wow. Did you ever think when you began this with Tony a long time ago that you were going to last any more than 6 months?
No. There was no, and the show started as a challenge. Here's what happened. I got a letter in the mail,
Yeah.
and I was a licensed Florida State auctioneer. I had my license, and I got a letter in the mail from a local TV station, AAN, America's Auction Network, and do I want a job? And I thought, yeah, I want a job on TV. I'll give it a try. So when I was hired, it was coins and jewelry, like your typical shop at home network. And that was fine. I was doing coins and jewelry, and I like coins, but I don't love coins. And that's how I met Eric and Todd, and we're still friends. And guys, I was 18, almost 19 years ago. And so anyhow, we're cleaning out this one big storeroom, and I'm looking through the stack of papers, and I lift it up. I go, it's a pencil signed Chagall. He's got 4 Dalis in here. And I go, where'd the boss get these? And he drives around in a van to yard sale all weekend with a pair of binoculars. He'll look at all the stuff on the tables. If it looks good, he'll buy it all. And I go, he walks in at that moment. I mean, meant to be. And he goes, throw that away. That's junk. And Tony looked at me and I looked at him. And Tony goes, if it doesn't have a cowboy, an Indian, a horse, a dog, or a mountain, it's not art. And I go, you know what, pal? I said, how about this? If I can take that stack and bring in $10,000, will you give me an art show? And he goes, yeah. Our first show, me and Tony did 36,000.
Wow.
A stack of junk destined for the dumpster. And now here's the best part.
Yeah.
We had one easel. I put a piece of cardboard on it, and I took binder clips and put up that Chagall. Our first Dali, we got $3,600 for. Or no, 4,200. The angel with drawers.
Yeah.
The angel with the blue wing.
Yeah.
I know
You had it on the show last night. You had 3 of them. You remember?
It was same but different. That was Beatrice Portinari. That was the Divine Comedy. This is the one where the drawers are in the chest and the belly.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Sitting, his head is looking down. Same but different. Anyhow, so it started as, I'd like to think of it as a wager, but it was a, if I can, would you? So
yeah. How come Tony doesn't come on camera?
He's old school producer. He has a degree in cinematography, and he taught at Full Sail Academy. And stage hands do not get on the air.
Well, he's not a stage hand, for God's sakes. I mean, he's the guy. Now, here's something one of my buddies who watches you too wanted to know. What is the average day like? Now, tomorrow you're going to be on the air tomorrow night at 7 p.m. from 7 to midnight with the fine art auction. What is your day like? What time do you get up tomorrow afternoon? What time do you get to the studio? Has the art already been assigned who's going to be on the show tomorrow night?
Well, Tony is the producer, and I mean the full producer. He will have it lined up. He will have the data entry. He will have a run sheet for me. I get the run sheet typically no later than Wednesday, and I'm the writer and the director. He's the producer. I'm the writer and director. It's all on me. I have no assistants. I've never had an assistant. I don't have a writer, which I should. But anyhow, I do my best, and I'll come in because after I used to come in like 2-3 hours early, but I rehearse. I do everything at home. And then I take a 2-hour nap, and I get up at 5:30, and I'm out the door by 6. I'm at work 6:20, and I prep everything. I get everything lined up in my brain, and then it's showtime, and it's live.
Yes, it's live, and this is an auction, and I'm not gonna, as you say, you must live really close to the studio then if you're only 20 minutes away in Atlanta.
Yeah, 3 miles. It's about 3.5 miles.
Yeah, I mean, because I've been to Atlanta in more ways than one, because I'm a big baseball fan, and I used to go there when I worked in show business. If I was close performing somewhere with Engelbert or Tom, I'd go see the Braves and the Phillies play. I always love to see the Braves lose. My father did too. He was a big Yankee fan. He really did too. I mean, it's unbelievable. Hey, I'll come up and be your assistant anytime you want me, Ray Taylor. I will.
Well, I'm looking more for a Vanna White prize stroker, they call them. I want a cute girl to the frame.
He says I'm not cute. Now I'm going to do an impression of you.
You're ruggedly handsome.
I'm rugged. Yeah, and I'm also old. I had a guy tell me the other day. He said, "Hey." He said, "Hey, geezer, get out of my way." He's just referring to me. I went, "Who are you talking to, young man?" You know what I love when you do this is when you go, like last night, I can't remember the piece, and you go, okay, you go into the Vatican Museum, the shop, and you tell them, okay, I want an original, and I want it in a $400 frame, and I'm only willing to pay $400 for the whole thing. Okay, see how far. I love when you improv like that. That's what makes Ray Taylor Ray Taylor. I'm sorry.
Well, what I try to do is put it. I try to do full gamut for the very beginner. For the very beginner, it's a big psychological thing. Is it okay to buy this? I mean, is it okay? It's hard-earned money. And I used to tell the story that my sweetie wanted a pair of $1,600 coffee end tables. They were $800 each. See, that's normal. You'd pay for that, but $1,800 for a work of art. Oh my gosh, that's insane. That's crazy talk. So what I try to do, and then what I'll do is I'll try to lure them in and get some really esoteric stuff for the art critics and the curators and the gallery owners that are watching. So you want to do full range. You want to do easy peasy and then go down the rabbit hole. And I will tell them, I say, look, this piece is serious. We're going to go right down the rabbit hole and we're going to get serious. And I'll have like 8 or 9 sources, and then I'll build it up to the museum that it's in, and I'll try to go a circle, and it's right here. This is it. I'm going to do it tomorrow night.
Yes, you do it all the time.
I got a pretty important piece coming up tomorrow night.
Well, you do it all the time when you say, go to my computer, and now it's educational time. Now the teacher comes out, the rabbi comes out of Ray Taylor talking about, and I know you love to discuss biblical pieces, so I am assuming, and I really shouldn't do that, I know better, that you are a man of deep faith as far as I am as well, which drives me crazy when people say, oh, Christianity's under attack, it's under attack. No, Christianity isn't under attack. It's the church that's under attack. Christianity's fine. Just people are walking away from the church because they look at the Catholic Church, they look at temples and everything else, and they go, something's not right here. I still love Jesus and everything, but your biblical knowledge is so wonderful. It's almost like you lived in the time of the Renaissance when that was a very important part of the artwork for a very long period of time. So that was one of my questions I was going to ask later on, but biblical art really moves you. And I think it moves everybody unless you're an atheist. Now, my good friend Bill Maher is an atheist. He doesn't believe in anything except the dollar, but even the dollar.
I'm going to interrupt. Just say, Bill, Drake's equation, and walk away.
Well, everybody has tried with Bill. Everybody has tried. Robin Williams tried with Bill. Everybody tried. Even Carlin tried with Bill. Wow. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. I sat in a discussion with Carlin one night with him and Bill Maher, and I just sat there. Robin Williams popped in, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "George is trying to convince him to be a Christian." He said, "It ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna go have a drink." So that was pretty much it. Here was a question I told you I was going to ask you, and then we're going to take a look at some pictures here. Okay. Ray Taylor is my guest here on Main Street. He's on tomorrow night on the AVC Channel, Fine Art Auction from 7 p.m. Eastern to 12 midnight. Please check him out. He's a fantastic auctioneer. He's more than an auctioneer. That kind of slights you. You're a teacher. You're a rabbi. You're an art historian. You're a scholar. You're a professor of art. There's no doubt about it. You are the Muruno Uno. What if, and we know that art began during the caveman era and all the way up, and everything around us is involved in art. But what if Da Vinci wasn't an artist? He'd been a doctor, or Michelangelo had decided to become something else, or Raphael, or Rembrandt, or Matisse, or Renoir, or Albert Dürer, or all these other people. What kind of a void would that have left? Or would somebody have come in and filled that void anyway?
Well, in a way, you kind of answered it. It's inevitable. If you look at every person you mentioned, Albrecht Dürer was a mathematician. Leonardo da Vinci studied optics. Albert Einstein was a major art collector. I think it is just part of the human psyche, because if you look at the history of man, and I say this all the time, the history of art is the history of man. What I mean by that is that every culture, I mean, you can have a remote Greek island, you can go to Iceland, you can go to the Nordic, the highest level of the Lapland and the Finns, and you can go to Borneo, and you can go to the desert, the jungle. It doesn't matter where you are. Every culture independently will have theater, dance, and art.
Yes.
It's the human experience. And so I have found that a great mathematician will love art. A great artist will love math. I mean, it's when you get to the higher, I'm fully convinced that art brings out your higher self.
Yeah.
And many things in life that bring out your baser self. One of the aha moments I had with that is that growing up in Madeira Beach, the dream was to go to University of South Florida. So of course, couldn't afford university. I did 2 years at St. Pete JC to get me into the last two at university. So I did that. So I had a little tiny apartment. The very famous, infamous apartments were Dusty Rhodes, the Briscoe
Oh,
brothers, the
oh,
Snooty
yeah.
Box apartments. So we had all these wrestlers. I've shook Dusty. I've drank with Dusty Rhodes at the Junkyard Lounge between Fowler and Fletcher, infamous bar. And so anyhow, we get a bunch of guys, and we'd all get into a couple of cars, and we illegally drink and drive. That was the way it was. Drink beer, go watch wrestling. And then when we all left the wrestling arena, I watched everybody else wrestle each other, throw each other on the ground, push them into cars. And I go, this brings out your lower self. This brings out the animal. When you go to a group of people to an art museum, when they come out, it sounds like somebody shaking a box of pigeons. Coo, 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 coo.
Yes.
So, yeah, humans are easily swayed. And that's why I don't go to scary movies. I get scared. Really, Tony
Yeah.
loves every Halloween. He goes to the haunted house,
Oh,
and I'm like, no, I will get scared.
yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely correct. I know that when I've gone to, when I needed to be picked up, living in Chicago or wherever, where I live now here in Florida, there is no museums. There is really no culture. There is a symphony, but it's so bloody expensive. But I remember as a child, and I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and we were driving in the car, and my mother was listening to a classical music station. And suddenly they brought on Beethoven's Ninth. The first time I ever heard it. And I
Wonderful.
went, wow, Mom, what is that? And she said, oh, that's Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I said, we have a stereo at home. Do you have that? She said, no, but I will go out and buy it for you. Now, I'm one of 9 children, okay? And my father always referred me as the long hair in the family, which is kind of weird. But yes, I fully believe that art, dance, music, art is everywhere. I mean, art is everywhere, from propaganda art to pop art to modern art to Renaissance art to street art like Banksy and Kef and all the other guys. It's all over the place, and it is a major influence. Advertising is art. How many
Yeah,
billboards just have the picture up there and maybe one word, you
right.
know? Simple and stupid, I mean, as far as it goes. But is there a chance that we are missing something in the art world that
Well,
needs to be addressed?
yes, and it's so funny in what you were just talking about. It led me to the experience. I think I had an art dealer friend of mine named John Graff. He just passed away from cancer. It was almost a year ago to the week. My sweetie and I, we went out to Vegas for the service, and a lovely, just a kind, wonderful man. And while I was in Vegas, I looked at it. Here's the thought that came to me. Globally, we had no defense budget, and this is kind of John Lennon imagine on my end. What if there was no war? Every city in the world would look like this. There'd be art everywhere. We had just gone into Steve Wynn's casino to see the Jeff Koons Popeye, and then
Yes.
in the hall is the tulips, and
Yes.
looking at the colors, the architecture, the fabrics, the tapestries, how clean everything was. And
Yes.
I thought, what if we had no war? The world
Yeah.
would be a work of art. Now, Vegas is nitty and gritty. I mean, there's some rough parts of Vegas, of course, but when you really look around, it's carefully orchestrated art. The one I really liked was Crockford and the Hilton and
Yeah.
the MGM. When you walk in and see that gold lion, that's sculpture. It's wonderful.
But here's I don't know if you know this or not. Now, I lived in Las Vegas for 10 years. As you know, I was an opening act for Engelbert, Tom Jones, and a bunch of other people too, along with everybody else in the whole world who was a comic. Johnny Dark was the main one. Tom Dreesen was the main one for Frank Sinatra. But do you know that originally the MGM had a big, huge lion as that's the front door,
Yes.
and they removed it because Asians will not walk into the mouth of a lion or any
Ah,
other animal for that matter, and they had to remove it. So you have to go around to the back to get into where else. But and by the way, I used to see that Popeye at least 5 days a week when I was a concierge at the Wynn Hotel.
I love it.
I used to see it all the time. And Steve Wynn, who is blind as a bat, I mean, he can't see save himself. He brought me into the hotel to handle the VIPs and everything. And he used to say to me, "Isn't this magnificent?" I said, "Yeah, for a place that has no windows and clocks, how the hell do I know what time it is?" I mean, and that's done on purpose. That's done on
Oh,
purpose in the casinos. To absolutely. Do you believe, as I believe, that artists like Leonardo and Rembrandt and Matisse and all the rest, their brains are like surgeons? They need to see in 3D and 2D in order to do what they do. Because Leonardo was above and beyond. Now you put Rembrandt first, and I know that. Could we have that picture up, please, of Mr. Rembrandt? There it
well,
is.
that painting is at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. I've stood and looked at that painting, and if you ever get a chance, get as close as you can. The brushwork is beyond incredible. It's
Hmm.
truly amazing. He was a painter of the highest caliber. Not to put down any of the genius of Leonardo da Vinci, but Da Vinci was the true Renaissance man. He was truly multifaceted. Mathematics, optics, astronomy, every category. That's why he said, and I have so many unfinished projects. A lot of Da Vinci's projects are unfinished. Again, I mean, in retrospective, to me, it just feels like it was meant to be. And
Hmm.
I do know, and after, spending the last 50 years with artists, for example, I'd go out to dinner, lunch, whatever, with Orban Huchet, an artist I know, and we'd be talking, and he'd reach over and grab a napkin off the table and start making a sketch of the waitress. Couldn't stop. They really are that way.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, you know,
But are artists like comedians and actors and other creative people, they think in another dimension that, say, the 9 to 5 person who goes to work and they're like, okay, this is my life and that's it.
little, they're regular people, but they have that drive. And I'm going to quote Rodney Dangerfield, whom I love, and I quote all the time. He goes, "The only normal people are the ones you don't know very well."
Well, I had the honor of meeting Rodney more than once, and my good friend Bob Saget was very good friends with him. He knew my uncle Tubby, who was an entertainer in Miami Beach forever and a day. That's how I got started in this crazy business. I'll tell you who was a great art collector was Frank Sinatra.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a young boy, I was invited to have lunch with my uncle at the Fontainebleau Hotel. We went down there to have lunch. I've told this story many times, and I didn't bother to ask my uncle. It was a Saturday in February who we're going to have lunch with, but we went to the private dining room, and who's sitting there waiting to have lunch with my uncle? Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr.
No.
And that's how I became friends with Dean Martin more than I did anybody else. But I remember being in Frank Sinatra's home when he was still alive in Palm Springs, and I remember the artwork and everything. Do you know his favorite color was orange?
I do know that. I,
Every movie he did or every in his house, there's always orange because he found it the color of intelligence, intellect. I just thought it was a cool color. As long as Breniff didn't put it on too many airplanes, it was okay with me. You know.
in the 70s when it was on the, what was it, the Plymouth Barracuda, the Dodge Barracuda, the
Hmm.
orange Hemi Cuda or whatever. Yeah, it was a hot color. It was a big color in the 70s.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, positively. There's so many other questions I want to get into, and unfortunately, I want to be able to get to some of the great stories that you have told over the years. But here's one thing that I do want to ask you: if you could change one thing about how the art world works, what would it be?
Wow, that is a big question.
You can, if you want to hold off and answer it a little bit down the road, we can. But
Yeah, I really don't. The only I think inequity is there are so many undiscovered talent, but I think that's being balanced out with the internet today.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I think the internet for an artist is making the world more democratic. Van Gogh only sold one painting, and it was to another
yeah.
artist, and in today's money would be worth about $450. So but with the internet, and there's a lot of outlets, and so
Yeah.
I don't think of what I would change. I think
You could wait till the end of the show. Wait till the end of the show, and we'll answer it. There's one question I've been dying to ask you forever. Raphael died at the age of 37 years old. His father died when he was 11 years old, which had probably inspired him to do some of the most magnificent work that anyone's ever seen. What did he die from at 37 years old? Was it something that if we had the medicines back then like we do today, he probably would have lived?
diplomat. From what we understand, he had a heart attack while making love.
That's okay. That's how I'd like to go out. I mean, if I can go out, that's the way I want to definitely go out. But I've always been curious because he died at 37, and I know back then medicines weren't what they were.
Right.
I mean, yeah, if you're having a good time and you go out with a smile on your face, what the heck? I mean, can you there's only one other way to go out, and that's you go to sleep and never wake up. I mean, that's
Sure.
that's the way it is. All right, let's get into some of these crazy stories. That one you want to tell is with Burt Reynolds.
Well, it was great. I'm working at Images International. It's about, I don't know, 1989. Lonnie Anderson walks in, and we had other celebrity come into the gallery. And the traditional thing is introduce, give them less than a minute, show them around, disengage, because you don't want to, disengage. Hi, welcome to the gallery. And the question is, and I learned this from, I think, one of the great geniuses, the woman who wrote the book, The Art of Selling Fine Art, Zella Jackson. The best question to ask: have you ever been in the gallery before? No? That's great. Let me show you around. Yes? What did you like? So it's a perfect question. And so disengage. I go, do you have any questions? You don't say, can I help you? Because what's the answer? No.
No.
Do you have any questions? And well, let me show you one last thing before you go, and that's how you re-engage. Perfect lady, love Lonnie Anderson. So she leaves and comes back the next day with Jim Neighbors. And I go, oh, so nice to see you again. And I go, Jim, I'm a big fan, and I love the way you sing. He was a baritone. He could sing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, magnificent. So we hit it off, and then they leave, and it was just lovely. And then about an hour later, Burt Reynolds walks in, and he goes, "What did Lonnie like? What did Jim like?" Lonnie didn't really alight on anything, Mr. Reynolds, but Jim really loved this painting by Raymond McCabe called "Thinking of You." I go, "It's a published print." He goes, "How much is it?" And we had chatted. He goes, "I go, sir, it's a published. It's one of the most valuable pieces. How much is it?" 30,000. He goes, "Bring it over to the house tonight, Jim's house." And he walked out. So everybody at the company kind of saw it, and I'm looking like the hero right then. And anybody goes, "Does anybody know where Jim Neighbors lives?" I'm like, "No, but we're on an island."
Okay.
Long story short, we knew a guy who knew a guy who knew the head of the Groundskeepers Association of Black Point. And so we finally got an address. And so I show up around 7 o'clock. No. I show up around 5 o'clock. I take it back. About 5 o'clock, I got the painting. And this gentleman, I can only, in a full on butler's outfit in Hawaii, that I can only describe as Lurch, but he was African American. And I'm like, I'm like this. He's like, hello. And he had the deepest baritone. And I go, "I'm here to deliver the painting to Mr. Burt Reynolds, and here's the receipt." And he turns around and walks away just like Lurch. And I'm like, leaves the door. This was awesome. I figured it out later. He had to be piecing everything together. He had to be an injured NBA player. That's all I can think of. And so I never found out who he was. So I walk in, and Bert's sitting there like this, and he's got this big old cup, and it's got salt on it. And the butler goes, "May I bring you a drink, sir?" And I go, "Yes." And he goes, "What would you like?" And I go, "I'll have what he's having." It turns out it's a salty dog, vodka grapefruit with about that much vodka, 3 ice cubes. And so we had 2 of those, and we start talking. And I'm from Florida. He's from Jupiter Beach. And so we
Yes,
just
he is.
hit it. I mean, Burt Reynolds is Burt. It was
Yes.
wonderful. And so we're on our second one, and I'm sure he had one before I got there. And I go, I'm trying to find a thread, I'm trying to, Burt, I used to play high school football. Like, I go, I know you played for Jupiter High School. I go, were you any good? He goes, any good? He set his drink down and tackled me in the living room.
Well, do you know, Ray, that he played at Florida State and he was the #1 draft pick of the Baltimore Colts,
Did not know that.
the team that my brother played for 14 years. But he didn't go because his knees were already bad and he knew he wasn't going to be able to do it. And he had some acting chops because the casting director in Hollywood, Florida, I grew up with her son, and she got me into Tony Rome movies as an extra. And I'm in The Godfather. I'm actually in The Godfather in the wedding scene, but don't ask me to find myself because me and her son have been looking for 20 years. Where are we? We don't even know where we are.
Yeah.
But I remember that was the first time I worked with Marlon Brando. The second time was in Apocalypse Now, and but he was already getting lazy at that point. Burt Reynolds to me was great. I went up to him one day and I introduced myself to him in Hollywood. And I said, Mr. Reynolds, my name is Gary Allen. You're a great football player. I went to the University of Miami. You went to Florida State. And he took one step away from me. And I said, I don't have a disease because I went to Miami. And he said, no, but you might rub off on me. And I don't really need that. And I said, you probably know of my brother, so-and-so with the Baltimore Colts. He said, know of him. He said, when will you speak to him again? He said, here's my number. Have him call me. I know Mike very well, but we lost communications. And I was friends with Burt forever. Quick story. Lonnie Anderson took him on a shopping spree one day. She went through 5 credit cards for $175,000 of clothes. She never wore one of them.
Wow.
He was PO to no end.
After we were wrestling in the living room and Jim Neighbors going, he had a solid lead crystal baccarat table about 6 feet in diameter. That was the most magnificent thing. And he thought we were going to tip that over and everything like that. So Lonnie Anderson comes out to see what all the noise is, and she was wearing a satin one-piece, old-school Hollywood tight-waist one-piece bikini with high-heeled slippers with the feather boa over the top of the toes, with a boa line. She came, and her hair was perfect, and she came sailing out, and it was the most Hollywood thing I've ever seen in my life. It was stunning. I had never seen I never have seen anything like that. Was the best entrance of anybody in the world. And then, okay, let me finish. So Jim Neighbors' house in Hawaii was so big, there was a couch in the middle of the room. Every couch in every house I've ever been in, it's been against the wall. So I got Burt. Look, I don't care if you're Burt Reynolds. When it's time to wrestle, we're going to wrestle. So he got me against the couch. I got him in a headlock. He was getting me back, but I flipped him over the couch. And I spun my headlock around, and I go to give him noogies, and I'm really going to, and I went, ah! I went, Burt, I can't do this, Burt. And he laughed, and Lonnie laughed, and Jim Neighbors laughed. It was wonderful.
Burt had the greatest sense of humor of anybody I've ever known.
He's funny and intelligent, and after that we just sat and laughed. It was a perfect day.
I would run into him at the Improv. He would come in once in a while, and he would, if Robin was there or Billy Crystal was there, and we'd all sit around. And Jay Leno, of course, I've known Jay since I was 9 years old, and we'd all be sitting around and talk. And I would MC for Bud, and he would come in. And one time he said, Gary, I've never seen you on stage. And Jay Leno goes, yeah, well, neither of any of us either. And he's there here every night. And the truth is, I'm on the stage all the time. But they don't ever come back there to see me, But he came back and saw me one night in disguise. And he said, I couldn't stop laughing. Your impersonations of people were just on target and everything else. And the way you deal with hecklers and everything, which is the -- thing to worry about. But Burt was fantastic. You also had the Prado in Madrid.
Just real quickly, this goes back to my sister, all the diving trips, scuba diving in Marathon, Florida. There was a gentleman, and so we get there, and we're at the surf camp, the surf shop, dive shop, and we're loading our gear, and we rent the tanks. We have our own BC compensators. We're getting loaded up, and my sister goes, and here's the guide, and I'm like, we're going scuba diving. We don't need a guide. I was offended. Turns out this guy is one-legged. He was filling the tank. It blew his leg off. It landed on the roof. They couldn't find it for a week. He's very famous. So he had one giant fin. And I'm like, this is the biggest waste of money. And so anyhow, the guy took us straight down to a cave that had a 6-foot nurse shark, over to a giant, the size of a Volkswagen Bug, single head brain coral. And then he took us to our school. It was worth every penny. I'm in. I'm getting ready to go to the night before. There was a pub crawl, and I thought, you know what? I learned from my sister. Yeah, I can go to a bar. Why would I pay to go? It was wonderful. There were 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls in Miami, and they were there, and they were delightful. And I'm not flirting with them, just whatever. And because I have Sweetie and all that. This is years ago. And but these 2 Iranian guys kind of latched onto our group without paying, and they're heavily hitting on these girls, and it made me mad. And I was like, they didn't pay. You don't have to, pay and everything like that. And none of the girls were flirting back, but they were friendly and fun, and it was nice, but it just annoyed me. And so anyhow, nothing happened. Good night. We all went home. So the next day I'm at the Prado, and I'm walking through, and I'm going down this vast hall of the El Grecos, and I get full on, straight on Stendhal syndrome. Start to cry. And Professor Stendhal, a friend of Sigmund Freud, wrote the paper that art can be so profound, it can give you an arousal. It can make you cry. It can make you laugh uncontrollably. And even museum guards are taught the Stendhal syndrome. People can have profound experiences. People will propose after going, and all these things. And so anyhow, I'm crying. I mean, the tears are coming down. And it's just like sometimes God just thumps you right in the head. And so I turn and look, and it's the Iranian guy, and tears are coming down his face. I go, why are you crying? And I'm standing there crying. He goes, I tried to see them all in one day. Me too. We're more the same than we are different. We're more the same than we are different.
Exactly. Tommy, bring up that picture of Salvador Mundi, please. I got to get to this story because this is incredible.
This is Carl Weathers, me and Dario Campanile. That's Carl, and there's the sculpture. When I went to the funeral, when I went to the memorial, his wife Peggy gave me that sculpture.
Oh,
so
wow.
Please continue.
Now, the other day, you and I talked about Salvador Mundi, which has been missing ever since he's been purchased. It was purchased, but you think you know where it is.
Well, we have a large amount of celebrity that watch the show, and our dealer's code, you can't say a word. Bert has passed, Jim Neighbors has passed. So anyhow, I'm on the phone to one of my clients who ironically now lives in Nashville. But he said something about it. And I said, oh, please, it's on some rich guy's yacht in the Mediterranean. And he goes, how did you spy? I'm like,
I hope it doesn't ruin the painting.
no, it's going to, my theory, it's going to stay there. It's destined for the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. The Louvre has, last I heard, 450,000 works of art. And at any time they have 135,000 on display. They need a sister. And so who has the money? It's Abu Dhabi. The money's in Abu Dhabi.
We've had Ray Taylor on the show for the last hour, and I am so happy to have had him on here. Check him out on Friday nights and Sunday nights on the art auction and the fine art auction. It's on from 7 p.m. to midnight. Ray, one final question before we let you get out of here. Where do you see the auction 5 years from now? Where do you see you 5 years?
I don't know. I'm worker bee. I just keep showing up. People ask me, how do you keep doing it? I go, I just keep showing up for work. Our whole family's workers and farmer stock. My goal, I want to be, and I've told this to the boss, the first one to sell $1 million painting on TV. Why not?
Yeah. If you're going to dream, you might as well dream big,
Right.
It's like my father used to say, if you're going to rob a bank, rob it for $1 million instead of $20. You're going to go to prison for the same amount. I just want to remind everybody, if you want to watch past episodes of Main Street, we're on dbtv.tv Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Ray Taylor, I hope I can count on you coming back at some point or another. I wish you well on Wednesday, and from then on in, it's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, how high, ma'am, and how often can I open the door for you? And you'll explain to that, I'm sure, on your show. But I wish you all the best, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Stay right there, because after the show, I want to talk to you for just a couple of minutes. And I just want to thank all of you out there for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us. On behalf of all of us here at Main Street, all the production staff and everybody, and Tommy, my executive producer, would you please take care of yourself? God bless you, and have a great